is Diane Thomas Beasley with Politics on the Patio, and I want to give a shout out to my co-host who's a little under the weather this evening, Sharon Lynch. Hey, Sharon. Tonight we have with us Julie Ballard, right?
Browder Eichhorn.
Browder Eichhorn. And this evening we're going to discuss a really hot issue. Stand your ground.
Yeah.
I know. But you have been involved with gun control for a long time.
I have. I got involved in the fall of 1999.
Oh, it's been that long.
It has
been
been that
long. I
long.
knew you've been in for a while.
Yeah, it has. I got involved to show my daughter that you should be involved in the community, that, going to work and coming home and watching TV is not enough of a life, that you need to be out there and involved. And got involved in politics because of her, and I'm still going strong after all
That's
these years.
true, but you were also an elected official.
I was. I served on Pataskala City Council.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've come a long way now.
I have.
Well, I guess we can start with the Stand Your Ground, because there's been several changes. Because I know from the time we've talked, there's been, 2 or 3 changes since then.
There have. So House Bill 228 was, when we first initially talked, was what we were going to be talking about, which was the bill, the Stand Your Ground bill. It had in there, amongst other things, a removal of the duty to retreat that's a current part of the Castle Doctrine law. And when it actually passed out of committee, they took that out of the bill and thereby said that it wasn't a Stand Your Ground bill. Well, that's only partially true. There's a great editorial in the Cleveland Plain Dealer that explains that the portion that's still left in the bill that switches the responsibility of defending, well, not defending, but prosecuting, to the prosecutor versus the defendant in one of these cases, actually does still make it a Stand Your Ground type of bill. And if you don't want to believe the Cleveland Plain Dealer, then you don't have to go any farther than the Buckeye Firearms Association, who said that while this bill was not perfect, they were very happy with it. So that tells you right there that the bill still is a Stand Your Ground bill, from the looks of it. Now, today, I got some information that House Bill 142, that's in the same committee, which is a terrible bill. That bill in and of itself is awful, because it tells people, or it actually tells you that you don't have to let an officer know that you're a concealed gun permit holder.
Really?
At a stop. So that's what that bill is initially, and now they want to add the duty to retreat to that bill. And so apparently that's supposed to be heard tomorrow morning in the committee. I'm hearing that it's probably going to pass out of the committee and go to the floor. So there will be a Stand Your Ground bill. So this is kind of that bait and switch that they did last week with the heartbeat bill that passed today.
Yes, I saw that.
So while it wasn't in HB 228, it's now going to be in HB 142.
Wow. Okay, I guess what I want to know is, I know it passed largely on party lines, so we do know that. I know there was one, and is this still in it, or is it not? They call it the straw man purchase.
Yes, the straw man purchaser portion of it is still in the bill, and we do need to stop straw man purchasing. So I'm not, opposed to that, at all. It's just that the rest of the bill is so bad. The other piece of the bill that's really bad is the fact that if a municipality tries to pass any kind of gun bill at all, they can be sued. And they can be sued even by an outside of the state group, as long as they can prove that they have standing, meaning, Diane's a member of our group here in Ohio, so we can sue. And the municipality, the taxpayers actually have to pay and foot the bill for this lawsuit. And so it's a way to, they say, it's a way to prevent rogue legislators from trying to pass bills that would be infringing on their rights. But, the truth of the matter is it just really kind of it's that final straw that just takes home rule completely away, as if they didn't already do that in the first place. But it really takes home rule away as far as where firearms are concerned. And I don't know if you saw that Dispatch article that our gun deaths are up.
You know what? And that's exactly what I was, because I had It said there last year there was 1,589 gun deaths in Ohio. 918 was suicide. 621 was homicides. So, and these are the highest numbers since it was first started. They first started to compile them in 1999 by the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you, yeah, we know the gun deaths are up, and that's not. But then you were talking about the home rule in the different municipalities. So that would stop, like, I guess it was Cincinnati who bans bump stocks.
Right, and we wanted to do it here too in Columbus, and yes, that would stop you from doing that type of a bill if Columbus would, or Cincinnati, whichever, would pass a bump stock ban, then an outside group or an inside group, really wouldn't matter, could say, well, we don't like that, so we're going to sue you, and then that municipality, whoever it is, would have to pay for that, meaning the taxpayers would have to pay for that. Of course. And so, of course, that would create a huge outcry because, we need money going to our schools, to our roads, to important things, not to lawsuits over, things that are really trying to save lives.
Yeah, and I also saw they added a change, and I don't know if this is still in it because I always thought they could, to allow off-duty law enforcement officers to carry firearms. I thought they already did.
Well, I thought so too, and I was actually kind of confused about that.
That's what I'm confused
and I apologize,
about.
I didn't actually really kind of look into that at all.
Because I know I used to date a cop, and he always had his firearm with him. When,
I really don't know.
Yeah, I wondered about that. Because I started reading all of this, and I was like, okay. And I guess the problem is, like with the NAACP and a lot of the African American groups, is because of the racial disparities that this is going to bring about for our community. Because for example, a white shooter who kills a black victim is 350% more likely to be found justified than if the shooter killed a white victim.
And that's correct. I actually went digging for the chairman of the committee, to be honest, to
I know
find.
You.
Yeah, you know.
I know you, Julie.
To find data for him because he specifically asked me. He was, alarmed, or seemed to be alarmed by the statistics that I gave him, which were very similar to what you had. And I actually found a study, and I wish I would have brought that with me, but I found a study online that actually tried to take all of the biases out of all of the literature on Stand Your Ground in the states that have Stand Your Ground, and did a very, very thorough job of statistically analyzing the data. And no matter what they did, Stand Your Ground is completely and totally unfair to communities of color and women.
Why women?
Because women don't get away with Stand Your Ground like men do.
Really?
So this is a bill that benefits primarily white men.
Wow. I mean, the more we talk, the worse it gets.
Right.
Yeah, because I had no idea that it would be bad for us also.
Yes.
Well, being an African American and a woman, I guess it's double. We got double problems.
Exactly.
And then I guess I was reading again because they said the Democrats tried to add language that asked the police, like you can go in and ask them to temporarily remove guns from a relative's house. Say, well, there was a couple weeks ago, a lady went to help her cousin and bring food, and he had mental issues, and he killed her. And I think you remember that. So they removed that so that you can't call and ask the police to go.
You can't.
Wow. And I mean, we know that because it just happened a couple weeks ago.
Yes, it's happened here. It's happened in a lot of different places.
But didn't your president just allow mentally ill people to purchase guns also?
Yes. The bottom line is that a lot of these groups really don't want any kind of restriction whatsoever. So
it'll be the Wild Wild West.
Well, except we always say that, but the truth of the matter is, and I watch a lot of Westerns with my significant other. Not because I want to, but because he always has them on TV. But the truth of the matter is, in the Wild Wild West, you had to check your gun in at the sheriff's office. You weren't carrying around in the town and all of that crazy foolishness. That's not how that worked. So, so when they say that, when people say that, it's like, oh, well, that's not exactly how that worked. And if we had that rule, they'd really be mad.
Yeah, they really would be. But I guess I just don't understand. I guess, like you said, it's to protect the white men so they can shoot anyone and really get away with it. But what is this about the prosecutors now?
Okay, so the provision that has stayed in the bill, which kind of still makes it a stand your ground type of thing, is right now in our law, if you shoot someone, you have to prove that you were justified in doing it.
So how do you do that?
Well, you have to say, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing. So even Chairman Coley said that the three parameters that are currently in law are kind of vague, and that he would like to see what he said the day that I was there testifying. He said that he would like to see that language tightened up. Now, what he meant by that exactly, I don't have any idea, but that's what he said. And that he'd like to, maybe revisit that next year. So that would be a new session, a new group of folks. And so that's, that was when they were kind of toying with taking the stand your ground language out.
Well, we're getting ready to take a break, and we're going to continue when we get back about stand your ground.
Hi, I'm Dan Green, the audio producer for Politics on the Patio. Today's subject matter, gun laws and gun control in the state of Ohio, is a subject that's very dear to my own heart. Recently, I released a music video on this very subject. Its title is The Devil's Loose in Vegas, and it can be seen at Dan Green, The Devil's Loose in Vegas, on YouTube. It's also available at iTunes, the Apple Store, and all major digital outlets. Check it out.
That there'd be no one there to stop him. The fix was in, he had everything he'd need. Long ago he spread his curse on those in power.
Best company I've ever worked for.
We're back with Politics on the Patio, and I am speaking with Julie this evening, and we are discussing the new piece of legislation called Stand Your Ground. And before we went to break, we were discussing about how does one prove that it's self-defense when one is still alive and the other one is dead? So how, I don't
Well, and
understand
that's where the
this.
problem is for right now. So in passing House Bill 228, it shifted the burden from you having to prove that what you did was justified to the prosecutor having to prove that what you did wasn't justified. And the prosecutor now doesn't have a witness because the witness is dead. So it has shifted the burden to the prosecutor versus the person who actually, committed the homicide, because it is a homicide whether or not it's deemed murder or manslaughter or anything like that. It's still a homicide. So shifting that burden over, that's kind of what continues this bill to being a stand your ground bill. Because basically you're going to say, well, I was standing my ground, and then the prosecutor has to prove that you were not, with no witness. And then you get into, what we've seen in so many other cases around the United States, like, Trayvon Martin obviously is the most, classic one of those. But you'll have that sort of trials going on, over and over again. And, and it's going to be a terrible thing. The homicides have gone up in every state where this has been passed.
Yeah.
And so it has been a proven fact that this will create more death.
Yep.
And I don't know why we would have anything in our codified laws that actually were for killing our citizens.
Well, I kind of do, but we won't go into that part of it right now because African Americans are being killed every single day.
Yes.
And a lot by our law enforcement, so we won't get into that right now. But Ohio's gun rate was 5.3 deaths per 100,000 of our residents last year, which was the highest in recent years. And they said Ohio is 18% higher than the national rate. The national rate is 4.5 deaths per 100,000. Right. So we're 18% more than the national.
And the bottom line is that this is not a law that's needed. We don't have anybody who's sitting in jail because they killed someone and it was self-defense and, they got a bad, deal out of it. We don't have that. We have Castle Doctrine, which protects you in your house and in your car.
Right, in your car.
What they were trying to expand the Castle Doctrine or the stand your ground, basically, to anywhere you're legally allowed to be. And where that becomes problematic is when you're out, in the street and a confrontation occurs, like we saw, I'm not sure what state that was, in the parking lot where the one gentleman shot the other gentleman, or we have again down in Florida where the older gentleman shot the younger gentleman for texting the babysitter in the movie theater. And so, you just get these, random outliers where that would not have happened if they knew they could not get away with something like that.
Wow. I guess, what do you think that will happen with the prosecutors now? I mean, now that they have to basically, they're not defending the person who did the shooting. So basically, how do they put a case together?
They're going to have to look at the evidence. They're going to have to do a whole lot of digging if there's any kind of video. It's going to have to be, like some of the crazy stuff you see on TV. It's going to be a lot more costly, I think, for us as taxpayers, because we're going to have to pay for all of that.
Yeah, because it just seems like there's just something not right there,
I agree with you.
It's okay. So if you shoot somebody because you feared for your life, so you don't have to prove it that you feared for your life.
Well, and I'm not sure, to be fair, I'm not sure that's a part of our law.
Okay.
There are 3 parameters right now for committing deadly or using deadly force, rather, in a self-defense, and I don't have those 3 things. And again, even what's there apparently is vague, and so I don't know. But we still, even with that being the case, this is not like it's a law that was needed. You know what I mean? It's not like we have so many people that are just sitting unjustly prosecuted because they hurt someone or killed someone in self-defense. We just don't have that. So this is being done because they're just really trying to expand all the areas where people can carry firearms and expand all of the reasons why people could use firearms, and also so they can sell firearms, because at the end of the day, the majority of the laws and rules and things that, are popular with groups like Buckeye Firearms Association, which coincidentally is the number one, I think, in size in the United States of NRA groups.
Right.
It's to sell firearms. The board of the NRA is, are gun manufacturers.
Yeah.
So, that's just how this works.
Yeah, we do have problems, okay? We do have problems. And so I know we talked about the House Bill 228, which, broadens the legislators' effort to suppress local home rule rights on gun laws.
Mm-hmm.
So the state then would sue the cities, is that the municipalities?
No,
so,
an outside group.
Okay.
Not the state, an outside group. So
who would be the outside group?
It could be Buckeye Firearms Association. It could be
See,
NRA National. It could be there's like a lot of fringe groups out there. And even when I went to testify the other day, there was a young man who was with some new group, and he called his group that they were the deplorables of the gun owners. I mean, he literally said that. And they were very, very extreme in the things that he was saying, that they believed that he didn't feel the bill went far enough, even as written. And that there should be, even more, but he was there to support the bill, as written, and not have anything taken out of it. I know that there's at least one legislator who voted against the bill, who's a Republican, not because of the bill itself, but he voted against it because the stand your ground provision was taken out. This is just
insane.
Yeah.
That's the only other word you can.
Yeah.
So if the group sues the municipality,
mm-hmm.
so the group gets the money?
Well,
I mean, it's all seeming a little...
Yes.
So, like, if they sue Cleveland,
mm-hmm.
this, say, Buckeye,
mm-hmm.
so Buckeye gets the money? Who gets the money?
If they win in court, which the way this law is written, they probably would, then yes, Buckeye would get the money.
Could I, as an individual, sue?
I don't think so. I think it had to be
it
a
has
group.
to be a group?
I think.
Oh, my.
Right.
See, I tried to read a lot of it, but a lot of it is so vague. And I guess you, by being down there and talking to different legislators and the committee members, you probably understand. Because I tried to read through this and, make my little notes, but I'm like, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it was interesting. I've been doing this for, since 1999, like I said.
Right.
And the people who actually led the charge this time was Amnesty International. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? That tells you that we have a really serious problem, because they really only ever get involved when there's, really huge threat of death, or there has been death, or, all of that. And they were the ones who were really kind of helping to get the coalition together of folks and get people to speak and, to testify and show up and all of that. So, they're not a gun grabber group like they called the groups that I've belonged to in the past.
Oh, really? Yeah, because what is it, Moms or something? You've got one?
I'm not with them anymore, but it was Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm actually kind of just on my own.
Because I remember your T-shirt.
Right, but I'm on my own because then I can do what I want to do, and I'm not hindered to speak.
Oh, yeah, speak. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. I guess also I was reading that they want to expand carrying guns into daycares and into bars.
Yeah. Well, they already have it in bars.
Oh, my God.
You can carry a gun into a bar, concealed, of course. Well, I'm thinking it's just concealed. I don't know if it's open carry or not. We do have open carry here, so I'm not quite sure on that. But you can take a gun into a bar, but you're not supposed to drink.
Yeah, right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's the worst place you need to have a gun.
I agree with you.
Because People start fights all the time. As soon as they get drunk,
Right.
you said something to my old lady, or and then
and then
what?
you have shootings in the parking lot,
Then you've got
which we see all the time.
right. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that is a place that they can do it. I think the other thing about House Bill 228 is you don't have to post. There were places that were posting signs that it was now legal to carry, and they wanted to be able to take the signs down, but there was some I don't know, tweak or some kind of reason why they couldn't do that.
What is it?
The signage. So the signage that says guns are not allowed here or whatever, or prohibited here, that has now been, they don't have to have those signs anymore. So.
Wow. That is really, I guess it just boggles my mind. And I mean, I understand that we can have and carry guns. I understand that. And that's all well and good. But then we're getting far out there now with these different laws and different rules. It's going to hurt us. We'll be back in a few moments to finish our talk.
It's easy for me to start with my grandmother and my mother because they were positive women in my life and they pushed and promoted me. But as I finished high school and started thinking about my career, there were two women who stand out for me. First, a lady named Charity Early, who wrote a book called One Woman's Army and who was the first female WACs in the Army. Born and grew up right in this great state of Ohio. And then Barbara Jordan was my other role model because she and Charity were good friends, and Charity Early understood mentoring. So she would take me with her when Barbara Jordan would fly in for a board meeting. So I had the opportunity to listen to her stories and to hear her talk about Congress. As people develop their hiring practices, as people move up the corporate ladder, oftentimes we're forgotten or we're not included. But when you practice real diversity, it's valuing the differences, and it's also making sure that from the top down and the bottom up that you embrace inclusiveness. When I think about diversity and I think about the issues faced as a senior vice president at The Ohio State University for Outreach and Engagement versus my experiences with diversity when I served as the minority House leader in the House of Representatives, the differences weren't that great because in both arenas I was working with a diverse population of individuals. And the real key is to get people to respect one another and to get people to be inclusive. And I had that experience at the university, being the only African American oftentimes in the room, but being strong enough to bring the issues up, to make sure that people are sensitive to our differences. And to have a great Ohio conference of the NAACP and to have champions of diversity. I think it sends a strong message for those companies who support champions of diversity. I say thank you. And for those that need to get on board, I say learn from what our great companies have done because it makes a difference in the lives of little girls and little boys because it is all about valuing, respecting, and understanding our great diversity.
This is Diane Thomas Beasley again, and with Politics on the Patio, and I have as my guest Julie, and we are talking about Stand Your Ground. And I guess I'm just flabbergasted. I really am, because the things that, I've been reading, and I went online and I pulled a lot of things from Cleveland, Columbus, and I guess, and most people are not going to understand, and I know a lot about legislation and politics and stuff, but everyday people are not going to understand because there's a lot in this bill that I don't understand. And I think, as we touched on before, it's going to be a problem, especially with African Americans and women. And So do you really think that it's going to pass?
Well, that's kind of hard. It's really hard to say. I do kind of think yes, it's going to pass. I think that the governor is going to veto it.
Do they have enough
Yeah.
to override his veto?
They say they have enough votes to override his veto, and I actually believe that, because I believe that if they didn't, they wouldn't have let it come out of committee and they wouldn't have taken it to the floor. So I do believe that, and I think that this will probably become law, and then it's going to be tough. Any changes would absolutely have to be done by the state legislature. No municipality would be able to do anything to come up against this, whether it's in 228 or 142. And again, I think that they've kind of bait and switched, just like they did with the heartbeat bill, which is a whole different day's discussion.
Right.
You know,
I know. I was thinking about that too. I said we should do something on that one too, because
Yeah.
that's another one that's going to
Well,
hurt a lot of people.
it's going to hurt a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I think the reason why they're doing it is to, because I think it violates Roe v. Wade, but it's
Yeah.
to get it back in front of SCOTUS, so SCOTUS can strip Roe v. Wade.
And
But
that's what they're
that's for.
trying to do, which makes no kind of sense whatsoever. I was reading also on Bill Coley, and he said, I think it's incumbent upon us to do our job and make sure that it's crystal clear as to when the use of deadly force is not subject to criminal prosecution. What does that mean?
Well, that's what he was talking about in that committee. He was saying that the law as it's written right now is currently too vague. And so you could almost kind of go either way. Again, no one came up with any cases here in the state of Ohio. The rogue guy with the deplorable group, he said
Right.
there was some gentleman in Minnesota, I think, or Wisconsin, one of those two states that, had a problem. But that's not our state, and any law that we have here wouldn't have solved the issue for that gentleman. And so we don't need to be creating laws here that apply someplace else. You know what I mean? That that may be helpful someplace else.
Right.
We need to be, doing laws that are helpful to our citizens, our people here in the state of Ohio. But he said that he had some ideas and that he really wanted to clear that up. And so I'm kind of kicking around some ideas of my own, because I think it's amazing to me when I sat in that room how polarized we are these days. Right. I mean, we are just really, you can't get people to be in the same room and agree on the color of the sky, let alone, do anything that would be meaningful. And I think that that's problematic.
Yeah.
Because then you get extremist legislation, whether it's on, one side or the other, what I consider to be my side or the other side, or, or vice versa. And I think that we need to do better. I heard all kinds of fantastic stories about how it used to be back in the Rife days.
Yeah.
When I worked in the legislature as a senior legislative aide.
Yeah.
I think that we've lost a lot, and I think that the
You're
citizens
exactly right.
lose a
We
lot.
lost, and because really back then, if you look at all the legislation that passed, it was all to help us. There was nothing that they were doing to hurt us. And it seems like now all the legislation, whether it's coming out of D.C., all these other states, it's as if they want to hurt us. There is nothing in any of the legislation that has been passed, and I don't even know when, that it says, wow, this is for the people, just like they're trying to take Social Security away from the people. You're trying to take the health care away from people. And it's like, who are these people that you are electing?
Right.
These are not people to help us. And then I was talking to, believe it or not, one of the lobbyists from way back when, and I said, why are these people voting against their own,
Interests.
their own? And he said, just like with the president, they don't care what he does, what he says. He's a racist just like they are. And that's why they vote for him. And this was a Caucasian man. And he said, that's why. They don't care that they're going to lose their health care. They're going to lose, mom's going to lose her Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid. They don't care. They have a one issue because this man is a racist and so are they. And I said, that's a hell of a way to vote.
It is.
That you don't care about anything else. Your children's going to die. They're not going to be able to get their inoculations and all of these things, or they fall out and break their arm. Now what? All of these things. And that's what he said to me. And I'm sitting there like, you're kidding, aren't you? He goes, no, I'm not kidding. Because I did. I just point asking,
I was looking at a couple of things last night online. And I was just reading comments,
Oh, I hate those.
I know. But you don't know what people are thinking unless you do.
I know. And unfortunately, I do that sometimes.
So I was looking and I was really quite astounded at what I was reading. I was reading, people who, it's black and white, things that are not disputable. And that's just not true.
I know.
That's just not true. And and so people have really kind of closed a blind eye, and it is going to be to their detriment. I think, we had a lot of great people come and testify. There was a Tuesday night committee meeting against 228 that went
remember
until
those days.
Right, but it went till, because it didn't start till 7 and it went till like midnight.
Oh, we know those days, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And so, and it was, it was good that, people came out on, the other side of the issue, because so often it's the other way around. And in fact, that's the way it was this morning. Apparently, in the committee meeting for, that House Bill 142 was, briefly discussed, the gentleman from Ohio for concealed carry. They've been the big torchbearers for this one. Were there.
Really?
And, they were all sitting in the room, and the room was full, and there wasn't anybody on my side of the issue there. And,
So you were the little one sitting there?
No, I wasn't there. I had somebody had kind of messaged
Oh.
me, and I'd gotten some intel. No, I had to go to work today. And that's the thing, you have a lot of people like me who have to work on the daily basis.
Right.
I'm not a paid lobbyist. There's nobody giving me any money to go and pay, and sit at the state
Perhaps
house.
you should think about that.
Well, I'd love to be, but I don't even know where to begin. You
just call a lobbyist and say, hey, I think I need to lobby for your organization. That's how you do it.
But I'm not that I'm not that person. I have to pay for my parking. I have to take a day off of work, and which is what I did last week.
Did you?
And was there, and that day I was the only one who testified on my side of but 40 people had testified the night before, but I was the only one who had testified that day, and it was all proponent testimony. I was the only opponent. And there were a couple ladies there from Moms Demand who sat behind me, and kind of were like, they kind of had my back a little bit. But it was just very telling, just to kind of sit there and watch the committee members' faces. And, some of them didn't even bother to show up to hear testimony. And so,
the legislators?
Correct.
Well, they already know how they're going to vote because they've been told how to vote.
Well,
as we know.
Yes.
Know.
So, so it's just, this is not good for our state. It's really not good for our state. And, I don't want us to be like Florida. Yeah. One of the legislators in committee said, oh, Florida's crime has gone down since Stand Your Ground's passed. And that is absolutely not true.
It's gone up.
It's gone up.
It's gone up.
Homicides have gone up.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that is absolutely not true. And so I made sure that when I sent information to the chairman, that I sent him the information on that as well, that was not true, that had been, said in the record in committee, and it wasn't true. And I wanted to make sure that all of the members had that information. The article that I was telling you about with all the great statistical analysis and how they really, really, I thought it was very thorough and how they were being fair, because they had, information from John Lott, and they had information from a lot of, people. But I'll give you that when...
Yeah, because we're going to have to do this again after it passes or whatever. Okay, well, we've been sitting here, Julie and I, discussing Stand Your Ground, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Celebrating over 60 years in business, Meatpackers Outlet says thank you, Columbus. Thanks for allowing us to help you pick out selections of meat or special cutting an item of your choice, always at the right price for your budget. Now at Meatpackers Outlet, T-bone and porterhouse steaks, only $8.99 a pound. A lot has changed in 60 years, but what has not is the personal service, great prices, and selection you get at Meatpackers Outlet.
Thank you, Columbus!
I'm thrilled to work for a company that does have values and that lives and works by them every day.
I'm really happy. My store just opened up like 3 weeks ago. And finally I can say I'm a store manager, which was my goal, thanks to DSW because they believed in me. I could easily cry.
I had no retail experience, no managerial experience, but they saw something in me and gave me the opportunity to make a difference in my life.
And also find an organization that was willing to accept me and I can also grow and develop with.
I think one of the most exciting things about being here is seeing people grow, develop, do more, enjoy their careers, elevate their careers.
Always being challenged and always being made to feel that I am valued in my role is what makes DSW favorite for me.
You always have a voice. People always want to know what's your idea, what are you doing to make a difference in your store. There's a lot of collaboration.
Everybody truly lives the values, and all of the behaviors that everyone exhibits supports that, and it's created a fantastic culture at DSW.
Hi DSW Associates, I'm Roger Rollins, I'm the CEO of DSW. I started my career in the restaurant industry. I evolved into public accounting, eventually led to retail, and ended up here at DSW. I've worked in great companies, but never built the kind of bond and relationships that I've built with people I work with at DSW. And I think it's because my values as a person align with the values of our organization.
Their heart and soul is in everything, and that's how I am, and I just identify with that, and it just makes every day wonderful for me.
A lot of companies put words on a wall and they don't mean anything. Here they actually mean what they say, and it makes it a great place to work.
We actually live by the values that we promote, and it's a great place to work.
I've just had an experience on a plane this past week. When I tell someone I work at DSW, I suddenly become a rock star. You know, to see the emotion that our customers have who are really passionate about footwear and about our brand, that's what makes this such a cool place to work.
We're back. This is Diane Thomas Beasley with Politics on the Patio. And this evening, I have my great friend and guest, Julie Bowers-Eichhorn. And we've been discussing Stand Your Ground, which is a new piece of legislation that is probably going to be headed to the governor's desk this week. But I also wanted to ask you, do you think background checks will help any of this? And I never think it will, because criminals can get guns when I can't get a gun. And I mean, seriously. So what do you think about background checks?
What I think about background checks is that they would not solve every case of crime. You're absolutely correct on that. Mm-hmm. But what I do think is if it was a requirement for every purchase, mm-hmm. it would cut down on straw purchasing, which they are trying to address in this law. But the fact of the matter is, here in Ohio right now, we could go to Westland when they have the gun shows and purchase a gun and come out and sell it to someone in the parking lot, and we haven't done anything wrong. So we could purchase it and then sell it, for a higher price to someone in the parking lot, and that's just fine. And we may or may not have had to show any ID in purchasing it at Westland, because they're not a federal, if we're not buying from a federally, licensed firearm dealer. So that's a problem. Our guns have been shown to be used in crimes in other states, like Chicago, like New York, some of our major metropolitan... Missouri, our major metropolitan centers, because they're so easy to get here. So yes, I do think that it will help stem the tide. Right now, it's a free for all. I think that it will help slow down the supply. And that's really what we need to do. We need to slow down the supply so that they're not getting into the streets. They're not getting into the wrong hands. And that's the thing that we're not doing. We're not doing anything to address some of the real problems, that everybody wants to cry, well, mental health, services. Okay, well, that's great. So then how do you define that?
Right.
How do you define that? There are a lot of people who take anxiety medicine. There are a lot of people who take depressive medicine. Are you going to ban everybody? Because then you're really not that is going to be prohibitive. You're not going
what
to be
I
able
like,
to
though, is
have anybody
that
have them.
if you get a medical marijuana card, you will not be able to carry a gun. But yet, people are on drugs. They are drunk half the time, driving drunk, opioids, all of this stuff, but they can carry a gun. But if you have medical marijuana, you can't carry a gun. I thought, does that make sense? Because usually people with marijuana is usually sitting somewhere nodding off and trying to find something to eat.
I was going to say. They're snacking.
They're snacking, so they're usually not out trying to kill someone.
Right.
So some of these laws, they're like, are you serious? That's what when I'm sitting there looking at TV, and I talk to myself a lot. My mother said it was okay, all right? But I sit there and I'm like, does any of this really make sense? So another thing, like they are up there buying guns, but I thought a lot of those ones, like at Westland, they will require you to take a background.
Only if the dealer is federally licensed.
Only, okay. Mm-hmm. So
if you're a person that just has a big arsenal, or you inherited them from someone, and you just want to get rid of them for the money because Christmas is coming or whatever, you can just set up a table at one of those, gun shows here, and you can sell them, and you don't have to ask for any ID. There's a young man who was shot at one of the college shootings years and years ago, and I can't think of the college right now. Anyway, he did Living for 32 because there were 32 people shot in the Virginia Tech.
Oh, I remember that.
So he
Virginia
did the
Tech.
documentary Living for 32, and in that documentary, he came to Ohio to a gun show and went in and was able to purchase a firearm because he wanted to show how easy this was. He didn't even have to show ID.
Wow.
And he bought a gun. And when he was in the parking lot, somebody asked if they could buy it from him. Of course, he didn't allow them to do that. But, I mean, again, this is how lax we are right now. So, yes, I do think that if we had background checks on every sale, yes, you'd have to go through that check. But, people that don't have a problem with passing a background check typically aren't upset about having to do it. So I question when people say, well, I don't want to have to do a background check for this or that or the other. Well, why? You know, what's in your background that you're not going to pass that background check? And if that's why you are not wanting to do it, then good. I don't want you,
Yeah,
if
that's
you have
true.
a problem, that indicates that you shouldn't have a firearm, then, I definitely want you going through a background check.
I know that there is something in the law that doesn't allow people convicted of domestic violence with guns. Is that correct? Or has that changed? I don't know. Because I thought, well, then, of course, so much has changed.
I think it depends on where you are, and I'm not sure what the rule is exactly here in Ohio. They call those the red flag laws in a lot of places, and they're trying, and people who are on kind of my side of the issue are trying to get those passed, but it's very difficult to get those passed because a lot of the men say, well, then a woman will just go and lie.
Okay.
And, maybe that is true in a couple of cases, but I don't think it's going to be true in all of them. And so the NRA fights that law tooth and nail.
Okay.
They really don't want any restrictions. And that's not the world we live in, and it's not realistic. And so, that gets back to what we were talking about earlier. How do we get to some kind of a consensus of some sort?
Right.
How do we, when you have over 90% of actual gun owners who say, yes, I'm fine with you doing background checks on all sales.
Right.
But then the people who actually lobby the legislators, say, no, we don't want that. And because they give, huge campaign contributions, this is why
is
we
another
sit here
problem.
tonight.
Which is another problem.
Right.
That we've got to deal with, campaign finance reform.
Right. But I mean, but that's what happens. And so, you don't have as much money on our side of the issue, again, and you don't have the people who, there's a lot of folks, a lot of those folks that were sitting in that room the other day, they look like they might be retired. I could be wrong, but they look like they might be retired. So they can come. They can sit down there all day, go to the cafeteria for lunch, do all that stuff. I can't do that.
Right.
I still have to go to work every day.
Right.
And so, I just really wonder how can we reach some sort of,
Yeah, some kind of consensus together that we
Right.
can do. Now, let me ask you another question that came to mind. Are convicted felons allowed to purchase guns legally? I know they can purchase them, but can they purchase legally?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, that's a good one.
Yes.
Unless they change that one. That could change too.
It could.
You're not down there right now, so you don't know what they're doing right now with House Bill 142, amended House Bill 142.
Well, and 142 is crazy. And, why would you not want to tell a police officer? I mean, I can see maybe why we wouldn't want to tell a police officer.
Yeah.
Philando Castile.
Yeah,
but
that
why
would be
would
your
you
first.
not want to let a police officer know that you have a firearm, you're not harmful, you are a concealed carry holder, but, it's put away, you're not going to touch it, but you don't want them to see something and then jump to the wrong conclusion. Why would you not want to do that? I don't understand.
Well,
and I don't think that the police officers understood it much either, because I'm pretty sure they were against both of these bills, to be
I
honest.
saw that. Yeah, they were. I saw that they were against it. The Fraternal Order of Police and Ohio's Prosecuting Attorneys Association, and of course the NAACP were against it. I was getting ready to ask you something, and guess what? Just went. It just went. Wasn't about the felons. But it was, again, criminals will always be able to get guns.
Criminals are always going to do what criminals do.
So what they're really doing is, okay, so my thing too is, what if a criminal shoots you with an unregistered gun and he said that it's self-defense? See, there's so many things that...
Well, and that has been... There was an LA Times article several years ago where they were saying that some of these stand your ground laws in some of the states had benefited gang members, because gang members were, shooting one another.
Right.
Now, if you are a convicted felon and you have a firearm and you're not supposed to have one, I don't know that there's any self-defense in that in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that you can really claim that. But
you can claim it, you never know.
Well, that's true. You can claim anything, I suppose. It's just like you used to say you can sue anybody for anything. Right. It doesn't mean you're going to win. So I don't think that that's necessarily the case. But, I don't see where this law is necessary. And again, it comes back to, we have so many things in the state that need to be fixed. Education,
exactly.
We've got children who are hungry. We got children who are hungry. We've got people who don't have housing. Why are we wasting time on something we don't even need?
Take up weeks. I know what I was going to ask you. There is also driving. When you're driving, they already have it on your license. Did you know that? Yeah. They have it. That's what I was going to say. Well, this has been really enlightening, and I want to thank Julie, and we are coming to the end of Politics on the Patio. This is Diane Thomas Beasley. See you next time.